Life is a symphony, and relationships are its melodies, meant to bring harmony, connection, and joy. Yet, what happens when certain notes become jarring? When instead of harmony, they create discord? Toxic people can be like storms, raging through your life, clouding your mind, and draining your energy. You may find yourself asking, how do I protect my peace without hardening my heart? How can I keep my compassion alive in the face of such turmoil? Now, imagine this. Deep within a mist-covered forest, there's a serene pond. A Zen master sits quietly, his gaze fixed on the gentle ripples as koi fish glide beneath the surface. The world around him is calm, but approaching him is a student, his face etched with frustration and pain. "Master," the student says, his voice trembling, "there are people in my life who wound me deeply. Their words, their actions, they pierce my heart like thorns. They bring nothing but pain. How can I escape their grip and find peace?" The master doesn't look up. Instead, he raises his hand and points to a single lotus flower blooming in the murky waters of the pond. Its petals are flawless, untouched by the mud below. "Do you see the lotus?" the master asks. "It grows in the filth yet remains pure. If you wish to protect your peace, you must learn from the lotus. Let it teach you how to thrive, even in the presence of what seeks to pull you down." This timeless wisdom is the foundation of today's journey. In this video, we'll explore the profound teachings of Zen and Buddhism on dealing with toxic people. You'll discover how to transform their negativity into a catalyst for your own growth. Through lessons in compassion, boundaries, self-reflection, and the ultimate liberation of letting go, you'll learn not just to survive these challenges, but to rise above them. Just like the lotus, you can bloom in beauty and strength, no matter how murky your surroundings may be. Stay with me until the end, because what we're about to uncover may not only change how you handle toxic relationships, it may change how you see yourself and your path through life. Let's begin this transformative journey together. The lotus in the murky pond. The student, weighed down by his emotional burdens, sat beside the master. The master, still gazing at the pond, began to speak. "The lotus is a remarkable flower. Its roots are buried deep in the mud, yet it rises, unstained, to bloom in beauty. Toxic people are like the mud. They surround us, challenge us, and sometimes try to pull us under. But like the lotus, you can learn to rise above them, untouched and pure." Curious, the student asked, "But master, how? How can I grow like the lotus?" The master smiled. "First, you must understand why the mud exists." The master leaned forward, picking up a small stone and tossing it into the water. The ripples expanded outward, distorting the serene reflection of the lotus. The mud below and the ripples above are both part of the pond. Without the mud, the lotus would have no foundation to grow. Without the ripples, the surface would remain stagnant. In life, toxic people often act like the mud and ripples. They disturb us, even frustrate us. But they also teach us how to remain steady and unshaken. The student frowned, still uncertain. "But master, the mud is dirty, unpleasant. How can I embrace something that feels so harmful?" The master turned to the student with a gentle gaze. To grow, the lotus does not fight the mud. It does not curse its surroundings or blame the water for its challenges. Instead, it uses the mud to anchor itself. It draws nourishment from it, but it never lets the mud stain its petals. This is the secret of the lotus. It transforms adversity into strength. The student sat silently, pondering the master's words. He thought about his own life and the people who seemed to drain his energy, those who left him feeling defeated and unworthy. Could it be, he wondered, that these toxic individuals were like the mud, difficult to endure, yet essential for his growth? "Master," he said finally, "does this mean I should let toxic people remain in my life?" The master shook his head slowly. "No, my student. To grow like the lotus, you must learn to be selective about what you take in. Toxicity exists around you, but it does not have to exist within you. You can acknowledge the mud without letting it define you. This is how the lotus blooms, by rising above, not by absorbing." The student nodded, a sense of clarity washing over him. For the first time, he saw his struggles not as mere obstacles, but as opportunities to learn resilience. Like the lotus, he too could thrive, not despite the mud, but because of it. Part 1. Understanding the source of toxicity. When another person makes you suffer, it is because they suffer deeply within themselves, said Thich Nhat Hanh. This truth is the cornerstone of understanding toxic behavior. Toxicity often stems from unresolved pain, insecurity, or unmet needs. When someone lashes out, manipulates, or hurts others, they're revealing their inner turmoil, not yours. The master, still gazing at the pond, said, "Think of the ripples caused by a stone thrown into water. They are not the water's nature. They are disturbances caused by an outside force." Toxic people's behavior is much the same, a disturbance reflecting their inner chaos. The student frowned, "But their actions hurt me deeply. How can I not take it personally?" The master placed a small leaf on the pond's surface. It floated effortlessly atop the ripples. This leaf does not sink because it is light and unattached. To rise above suffering, you must learn to remain unattached to the actions and words of others. Their anger, manipulation, or negativity are not reflections of you. They are echoes of their own pain. Consider a colleague who constantly criticizes you. At first, you might internalize their words, wondering if their harshness stems from some fault of yours. But what if you pause to ask, what's driving their behavior? Perhaps this person struggles with a fear of inadequacy, projecting their own doubts onto you. Understanding this doesn't excuse their actions, but it shifts your perspective. You see their behavior as a cry for help, not a verdict on your worth. The student, still struggling with this idea, asked, "But Master, does Buddhism not teach us to endure the suffering of others?" The master smiled gently. "Endurance without wisdom is like walking blindfolded through a dense forest. Yes, you may endure, but at what cost? You will stumble, fall, and hurt yourself along the way. Wisdom allows you to endure with clarity. It helps you see that their actions are not personal, but reflections of their own struggles. Understanding this creates a powerful shift. Instead of reacting with anger or internalizing their behavior, you can respond with compassion or detachment. Toxic people often don't realize the harm they cause. They are too consumed by their own suffering. By recognizing this, you begin to separate yourself from their negativity, allowing their actions to remain what they are, a reflection of their inner pain, not a definition of your value. This understanding becomes a shield, helping you navigate toxic relationships with resilience and grace. Part 2. Transformative power of compassion. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love, teaches the Buddha. Compassion is the antidote to toxicity, not for changing others, but for freeing yourself. The student, still puzzled, asked, "Master, why should I show compassion to someone who causes me pain?" The master picked up a handful of sand and let it slip through his fingers. Compassion is not given to change others. It is given to free yourself. When you show kindness, you let go of anger, resentment, and fear. Whether they change or not is not your responsibility. The student frowned. "But what if my compassion only encourages them to hurt me more?" The master smiled. Compassion is not the same as surrender. It is not about allowing someone to harm you. It is about choosing not to harm yourself with anger or hatred. True compassion comes with strength. It lets you see the pain of others without becoming entangled in it. Imagine a woman who endured years of verbal abuse from her partner. She realized that holding on to anger and resentment only deepened her suffering. Instead, she chose a different path. She approached her situation with compassion, not by staying in the relationship, but by releasing the anger that had chained her to the past. She calmly set boundaries and eventually walked away, free from both her partner's cruelty and her own resentment. Over time, she found a profound sense of inner peace, even though her partner never changed. This is the transformative power of compassion. It does not mean tolerating abuse or excusing harmful behavior. Instead, it allows you to shift from reacting with hostility to responding with understanding. Like sunlight that melts ice, Compassion softens the hard edges of anger and creates space for healing, both for yourself and, potentially, for the other person. The master pointed to the pond. "Look at the water," he said. "When disturbed, it ripples and churns, but it eventually returns to stillness. Compassion is like that stillness. It calms the disturbances within us and brings clarity." The student nodded slowly, beginning to grasp the lesson. Compassion is not about fixing others. It is about releasing the burden of anger and resentment within oneself. It is not a weakness, but a profound strength, enabling you to rise above the negativity of toxic people. In practicing compassion, you liberate yourself. You choose peace over conflict, understanding over judgment, and strength over bitterness. And in doing so, you create a space where even the hardest hearts can begin to thaw, not because you force them to, but because you embody the light of love and kindness. Part 3. Setting boundaries with wisdom. Compassion does not mean tolerating harmful behavior. The Zen master led the student to a bamboo grove. Bamboo bends with the wind but does not break. It knows its limits. When the storm is too strong, it sheds its leaves, but it never lets its roots be torn from the earth. Learn from the bamboo. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's about protecting your inner peace while still engaging with others. The student looked at the bamboo, swaying gently in the breeze, and asked, "But master, how do I set boundaries without creating anger or conflict? Won't people see it as rejection?" The master smiled. Boundaries are not barriers of isolation. They are lines of clarity. They protect what is sacred within you while inviting others to engage with you in a healthy way. Speak your truth with kindness, and those who respect you will understand. Those who do not were never truly walking the same path as you. Consider a woman working in an office where her coworker often undermines her efforts. Instead of remaining silent or retaliating, she decides to set boundaries. At the next encounter, she calmly says, "I appreciate feedback, but I would prefer it to be constructive rather than critical." By asserting her needs without hostility, she establishes a new dynamic. Her coworker may adjust their behavior, or they may not, but either way, she has protected her peace. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about defining how you allow yourself to be treated. They are not walls to shut people out, but bridges that create mutual understanding. They teach others how to respect your values, time, and energy. The student pondered this. What if someone ignores my boundaries or tries to push through them? The master replied, "When the storm grows too fierce, the bamboo does not resist, it bends, but it does not break." If someone refuses to honor your boundaries, it is a sign they do not belong in your inner circle. Do not waste energy fighting their disrespect. Instead, strengthen your roots, your self-worth, and let the storm pass. Setting boundaries is challenging, especially with toxic people who may resist them. Yet, it is essential for maintaining your emotional well-being. Each time you assert your needs with clarity and compassion, you reinforce your sense of self-respect. Those who truly value you will honor your boundaries, and those who do not will reveal their true nature. The bamboo teaches us resilience and flexibility. It reminds us that boundaries are not acts of rejection but commitments to our own well-being. Like the bamboo, you can stand firm in your values, bending when necessary but never allowing your roots to be torn from the earth. In doing so, you preserve your strength, your peace, and your capacity to thrive, no matter how fierce the storm. Part 4. Self-reflection and growth. Toxic relationships often mirror unresolved issues within us. The Zen master handed the student a mirror. "What do you see?" "My reflection," the student replied. The master continued, "Do you see the dust on the surface? Clean it, and the truth becomes clear." The student hesitated, then asked, "Master, are you saying the dust is my own fault?" The master shook his head gently. "Not fault, but responsibility. The dust represents your unexamined fears, wounds, and patterns. Only by acknowledging and clearing it can you see the truth of your experiences and learn from them." Self-reflection is like this act of cleaning the mirror. It requires you to pause and look inward, to ask hard questions about why you might be drawn to certain relationships or why you react in specific ways. For instance, if you often find yourself in relationships with toxic individuals, it's worth exploring. What unhealed part of me resonates with their behavior? Consider a man who constantly sought validation from others, even those who treated him poorly. Through self-reflection, he uncovered a pattern rooted in his childhood. His need for approval stemmed from feeling unseen by his parents. Once he recognized this, he began to work on validating himself, breaking free from the cycle of seeking approval from toxic people. The master turned the mirror in his hand, catching the sunlight. "Remember," he said, "a mirror reflects only what stands before it. If you see the same painful patterns in others, it may be a sign to look within. This is not to blame yourself, but to empower yourself. The lessons you uncover will guide you toward growth." A woman once realized her toxic relationships were fueled by a fear of loneliness. She clung to harmful dynamics because she believed being alone was worse. When she finally confronted this fear, she learned to enjoy her own company and began attracting healthier relationships into her life. Self-reflection is not about guilt or blame. It is about growth. By examining your patterns and fears, you gain the clarity to break free from cycles of toxicity and create space for healthier connections. Just as a clean mirror reflects accurately, a clear mind allows you to see the truth and act with wisdom. Through self-awareness, you transform pain into growth and obstacles into opportunities. Part 5. Letting go with grace. Attachment is the root of suffering, said the Buddha. Letting go is one of the hardest yet most liberating teachings. The student asked, "Master, if I let go, does it not mean I have failed to help them?" The master shook his head gently, his expression calm. A bird cannot teach a fish to fly, just as a fish cannot teach a bird to swim. Some paths are not meant to intertwine for long. Letting go is not failure. It is faith, faith in yourself, in them, and in the unfolding of the universe. It is an act of love, not abandonment. Letting go often feels like giving up, but it is, in fact, an act of profound courage. Consider someone who clings to a toxic relationship, desperately hoping the other person will change. They invest time, energy, and emotions into fixing a situation that remains unfixable. The weight of this effort drains them, leaving no space for their own growth. When they finally choose to let go, they discover a freedom they hadn't known, a peace that arises from releasing the need to control outcomes. Letting go does not mean abandoning compassion. It means recognizing that everyone has their own journey, and your well-being should not depend on another person's choices or actions. It is about releasing the grip of expectations and trusting that life will unfold as it should. The master gestured to the sky. Look at the leaves falling from the trees. Do they struggle to hold on? No, they let go with grace, trusting that the cycle of life will bring new growth. In the same way, you must trust that letting go creates space for you and for the other person to grow. Letting go is not an act of indifference. It is an act of love and trust. By releasing someone or something that no longer serves your well-being, you allow both yourself and the other person the freedom to grow and change. Through the process of letting go, you honor the impermanence of all things. You embrace the ebb and flow of life, finding peace in the knowledge that while some paths may diverge, your journey continues. Letting go is not the end. It is a beginning, a space for renewal, growth, and the unfolding of a life rooted in freedom and grace. The lotus blooms in the mud, not because it avoids the filth, but because it transcends it. Its beauty is not diminished by the murky waters. Rather, the mud becomes the foundation for its growth. In the same way, toxic relationships are not here to define you. They are here to refine you, to challenge you to rise above and uncover your true strength. Through this journey, we've explored profound lessons that echo the wisdom of the lotus. Understand that toxicity stems from others' inner pain. Their actions are reflections of their struggles, not your worth. Recognizing this helps you respond with clarity rather than react with emotion. Practice compassion to free yourself, not to change others. True compassion is a gift you give yourself, a release from the chains of resentment and anger. Set boundaries to protect your well-being. Boundaries are acts of love for yourself, ensuring your peace and energy remain intact. Reflect inward to uncover personal growth. Toxic relationships are mirrors that reveal your own patterns and fears, offering opportunities for healing and transformation. Let go with grace and faith in life's flow. Releasing what no longer serves you creates space for renewal, growth, and new possibilities. The lotus does not waste its energy trying to purify the mud around it. Instead, it focuses on its own growth, drawing nourishment from adversity and rising untouched. Similarly, the choice is always yours. Will you let toxicity consume you, or will you respond with wisdom, strength, and grace? Remember, the path of the lotus is not about perfection but persistence. Each time you choose understanding over judgment, compassion over anger, and growth over stagnation, you rise a little higher, just like the lotus climbing through the mud toward the light. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe for more insights into navigating life's challenges with courage and mindfulness. Until next time, may you walk your path with strength, kindness, and the quiet beauty of a lotus blooming in the mud.